The Couple in the Lake. A 5-minute horror story. The moon was almost perfectly full when Dara and Grace arrived at the lake. They had been there many times before. During the day, it was beautiful, clear water, trees surrounding the shore, and birds singing in the distance. But at night, the place felt different. Tonight, there wasn't a single sound. No insects, no birds, not even the wind. Grace looked across the black water. "It's strange tonight," she whispered. Dara smiled and pulled her closer. "It's just quiet." They stepped into the cold water together. For a few minutes, everything was perfect. They laughed, they talked, they held each other beneath the moonlight. Then Grace suddenly stopped. "Dara, what? Did you hear that?" He listened. Splash. Something had moved behind them. They turned. Nothing, only ripples spreading across the lake. Dara laughed nervously. "Probably a fish." Grace wasn't convinced. They started walking back toward the shore. Then she noticed something floating beside them. A photograph. Dara picked it up. It was old and completely soaked. The photograph showed a young couple standing in the exact same lake, but there was something wrong. Behind them, barely visible beneath the surface, was a pale hand resting against the girl's shoulder. Grace stared at it. "Who are they?" Dara turned the photograph over. Written on the back were 4 words: "She always takes 2. Suddenly, splash! Something struck the water behind them. They spun around. A figure stood several meters away. A woman. Her hair hung over her face, dripping with lake water. She didn't move. Grace grabbed Dara's arm. "Let's go." They hurried toward the shore, but the woman was suddenly closer. Dara stopped. "How did she?" The woman lifted her head. Her face was almost impossible to see beneath her wet hair. Then she whispered, "Don't leave me alone." The water around Dara and Grace began moving, not like waves, like something underneath was circling them. Grace screamed, "Dara!" He grabbed her hand. "Run!" They reached the shore and stumbled onto the grass. For a moment, everything was silent again. They looked back. The lake was completely still. The woman was gone. Dara breathed heavily. "We're leaving. Now." They ran toward the car, but Grace suddenly stopped. He turned. She was staring at the lake. 2 sets of footprints were appearing in the wet sand, walking out of the water, slowly, 1 step at a time. But nobody was there. The footprints continued toward them, then stopped directly behind Grace. Derek's face went pale. "Grace, don't turn around." A cold breath seemed to pass across her shoulder, and a voice whispered beside her ear, "You came together." Grace froze. "You'll leave together." The lake suddenly erupted behind them. Dara grabbed Grace and pulled her toward the car. They drove away as fast as they could. Neither of them spoke. Eventually, they reached home. The doors were locked. The lights were on. Everything seemed normal. Grace went upstairs. Dara followed. Then Grace stopped outside their bedroom. There was water dripping from the ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. Dara looked up. Nothing. Then Grace pointed toward the bedroom mirror. Their reflections were standing there. But they weren't alone. The drowned woman stood behind them. Grace screamed and turned around. Nobody was there. When she looked back at the mirror, the woman was gone. But something else had changed. Their reflections were no longer smiling. Dara's reflection slowly raised its hand. Grace's reflection did the same. Then both reflections pressed their palms against the glass. Thud. The mirror cracked. A voice came from the other side. "The lake remembers." The lights went out. And somewhere downstairs, they heard water running. Dara grabbed Grace's hand. They slowly walked toward the stairs. Step, step, step. At the bottom was a trail of lake water leading from the front door, all the way into the house. And at the end of the trail stood the woman. She finally moved the hair away from her face. Her eyes were completely black. She smiled. Then she pointed toward Dara and Grace. Behind her, the entire hallway began filling with dark water. Grace squeezed Dara's hand. The woman whispered, "I told you." The water rose around their feet. "She always takes 2. The front door slammed shut, and the last thing Dara heard before the darkness swallowed the room was Grace whispering, "Don't let go." Then, silence. The next morning, the lake was perfectly still. 2 new photographs had appeared on the shore. One showed Dara, one showed Grace. Both were smiling. And behind them stood the woman, waiting for the next couple to arrive.